I've awakened in thy shelter, oh my God, and it becometh him that seeketh that shelter to abide within the sanctuary of thy protection and the stronghold of thy defense. Illumine my inner being, oh my Lord, with the splendors of the day spring of thy revelation, even as thou didst illumine my outer being with the morning light of thy favor. Illumine my inner being, oh my Lord, with the splendors of the day spring of thy revelation, even as thou didst illumine my outer being with the morning light of thy favor. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. Hello, everyone there in our Zoom stream. We see Yuda and Andy and Gilbert, and Jeremiah is with us holding things down, and Terry is with us. Terry McBride, good morning to you. And we hope everything is going well. And hello, everyone out there in Facebook land, whether you're seeing this, right now as we're actually doing the program at some other time. We hope you're doing well. As you can see, I'm here by myself. I'm not really totally by myself. Daryl's not here. The lovely and talented Nene Ha is sitting over there. Choosing not to be seen and often choosing not to be heard. But either way, she's here helping us hold things down. Daryl is not feeling well, and usually if he's not here, that's usually the case. And today he's not feeling. And Ralph is joining us right now. Good morning. Well, he's not quite in the Zoom room yet, but he's on his way in. Let me see if I can let him. Oh, Jeremiah already did it. Jeremiah is on top of things. But good morning, Ralph. And as you know, we are working with Baha'u'llah and the New Era. And I will admit, when I'm here doing this by myself, I'm kind of a bit befuddled and kind of all over the place. And so I almost forgot to let's start with a prayer. And good morning, Artisher. We're glad you're here. So, and I had that marked. And then I started working with it, and here we are. Great. O my Lord, make thy beauty to be my food, and thy presence my drink, and thy pleasure my hope, and praise of thee my action, and remembrance of thee my companion, and the power of thy sovereignty my succorer, and thy habitation my home, and my dwelling place the seat thou hast sanctified from the limitations imposed upon them who are shut out as by a veil from thee. Thou art verily the Almighty, the All-Glorious, the Most Powerful. And this is a prayer by Baha'u'llah. Now, I don't know how the weather is where you all are, but here in Florida, I'll say it's kind of Florida cool. We've got a storm that's been going on for the last couple of days. It's a little cool. It's cloudy. Yesterday there was a lot of rain. It's still a little raining a little out there. When I say Florida cool, it's what other people might call springtime. It's like in the 60s. It's like in the 60s here. But it's 60s, windy and rainy, and so all that together makes it kind of a good day to kind of either stay in or make sure you have a good jacket on when you go out. But as we were saying, the book that we are working on, as always, right now, for now, is Baha'u'llah and the New Era. Let me hold it up so it can be seen over here on the other. Baha'u'llah and the New Era. And last week, we started reading about Baha'u'llah. We had read about the state of things when the Bab first declared his message, and we read about the Bab's martyrdom. We also read about the Bab preparing his followers for he whom God shall make manifest, which turns out to be Baha'u'llah. And so now we are reading about, we actually have already started reading about some of the trials and tribulations that Baha'u'llah has gone through as he begins his ministry. And if you recall, there was a point where Baha'u'llah just decided to get away from his followers because there was so much strife, and I don't mean just difficulty. I mean there was so much disunity, and he felt like it might be better if he got away. And so they call it, at least Esselmont, the author of the book, calls it his retirement, where he actually took himself into isolation for 2 years. Okay, but then God spoke to him and told him, no, you have to go back. And of course, the manifestation of God has to follow the will of God. Okay, and so he did. Alrighty, and so we're going to pick it up today from page 34. At least in this particular book is page 34. It might be a different page if you have a different edition. But the section that we are going to begin with today is the opposition of mullahs. Opposition of mullahs. And so let's begin. After his return from his retirement, his being, of course, Baha'u'llah's return, after his return from his retirement, his fame became greater than ever, and people flocked to Baghdad from far and near to see him and to hear his teachings. Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, as well as Mohammedans, who we now call, of course, Muslims, but as well as Mohammedans, became interested in the new message. The mullahs, who were Mohammedan doctors, however, took up a hostile attitude and persistently plotted to effect his overthrow. On a certain occasion, they sent one of their number to interview him and submit to him certain questions. The envoy found the answers of Baha'u'llah so convincing and his wisdom so amazing, although evidently not acquired by study, that he was obliged, he being this envoy, he was obliged to confess that in knowledge and understanding, Baha'u'llah was peerless. Peerless. Here's someone who needs to get in. Hang on. Let me take care of this real quick. Oh, well, already taken care of. Good morning, Sharonay. Glad you're here. Baha'u'llah was peerless. In order, however, that the mullahs who had sent him should be satisfied as to the reality of Baha'u'llah's prophethood, he asked that some miracle, this envoy asked that some miracle should be produced as proof. And Baha'u'llah expressed his willingness to accept the suggestion on certain conditions, declaring that if the mullahs would agree regarding some miracle to be performed and would sign and seal a document to the effect that on performance of this miracle, they would confess the validity of his mission and cease to oppose him, he would furnish the desired proof, or else stand convicted of imposture. Had the aim of the mullahs been to get at the truth, surely here was their opportunity. But their intention was far otherwise. Rightly or wrongly, they meant to secure a decision in their own favor. They feared the truth and fled from the daring challenge. This discomfiture, which I had to look up, frankly, it means embarrassment. This discomfiture, however, only spurred them on to devise fresh plots for the eradication of the oppressed sect. The consul general of Persia in Baghdad came to their assistance and sent repeated messages to the Shah to the effect that Baha'u'llah was injuring the Mohammedans' religion more than ever, still exerting a malign influence in Persia, and that he ought therefore to be banished to some more distant place. It was characteristic of Baha'u'llah that at this crisis, when at the instigation of the Mohammedan mullahs, the Persian and Turkish governments were combining their efforts to eradicate the movement, He, Baha'u'llah, remained calm and serene, encouraging and inspiring his followers and writing imperishable words of consolation and guidance. Abdul-Baha, for anyone who doesn't remember, the son of Baha'u'llah, Abdul-Baha related how the hidden words were written at this time. And you know what? I actually have a copy of the hidden words, and I meant to have it here so I could just hold it up and show it. It's not absolutely necessary, but anyway, it's one of those books that that many Baha'is we point to often as the inspiration that caused us to further investigate the faith, and in many cases actually accept the faith as actually being this new revelation. Abdul-Baha related how the hidden words were written at this time. Baha'u'llah would often go for a walk along the bank of the Tigris. He would come back looking very happy and write down those lyric gems of wise counsel which have brought help and healing to thousands of aching and troubled hearts. For years, only a few manuscript copies of the hidden words were in existence, and these had to be carefully concealed lest they should fall into the hands of the enemies that abounded. But now, this little volume is probably the best known of all of Baha'u'llah's works and is read in every corner of the globe. Now, Esselmont mentions another book, the Book of Igan, often referred to in English as the Book of Certitude, or the Kitabi Igan. The Book of Igan, which was of course not English, but the Book of Certitude. The Book of Igan is another well-known work of Baha'u'llah's, written about the same period, towards the end of his sojourn at Baghdad, which went from 1862 to 1863. Now, one thing I want to say about both of those books is, number one, anyone who's interested in getting those books, you can purchase them, of course, but you can also get access to the content of those books just by going to Baha'i.org. And both of them, again, being important books, one just being just the most beautiful verses that give, comfort and inspiration and insight. But the other, the Book of Igan, is actually a lengthy explanation that, how do I say it, that presents, I don't want to call it the argument, but the proof that Baha'u'llah is the manifestation for God of this day. And he actually refers to various points that are made in both the Bible and the Quran. And points to their actual explanation as to how he fulfills many of these prophecies and what our understanding should be. So those are two books. Again, I'm mainly speaking of the Igan, but the Hidden Words and the Kitabi Igan are both just amazing reads, and I really recommend that if you haven't read them, that you do. So let's move on. We're now going to read Declaration at Rizwan. For anyone who doesn't have a book, Rizwan doesn't look like Rizwan. It's spelled R-I-D-V-A-N, but it's pronounced Rizwan. Declaration of Rizwan near Baghdad. And again, this is in 1863. After much negotiation, at the request of the Persian government, an order was issued by the Turkish government summoning Baha'u'llah to Constantinople. Now, there's one thing I want to point out before I continue here. Baha'u'llah is still a prisoner at this time. He's not always inside prison walls, but he never, got to the point up to the end of his life where he was completely free. Sometimes he indeed was literally imprisoned, and other times he might have been exiled, but he never actually went back, let's say, to his home, and he was always under some kind of government authority. So I'll continue. After much negotiation, at the request of the Persian government, an order was issued by the Turkish government summoning Baha'u'llah to Constantinople. On receipt of this news, his followers were in consternation. They besieged the house of their beloved leader to such an extent that the family encamped in the garden of Najib Pasha outside the town for 12 days. Outside the town for 12 days while the caravan was being prepared for the long journey. It was on the first of these 12 days, which went from April 22nd to May 3rd, 1863. It was on the first of these 12 days that Baha'u'llah announced to several of his followers the glad tidings that he was the one whose coming had been foretold by the Bab, the chosen of God, the promised one of all the prophets. And I should point out that it's interesting, the point is made here, that again, as I pointed out, the 12 days of Rizwan, those first 12 days were from April 22nd to May 3rd, 1863. In essence, 19 years, excuse me, 19 years after the Bab's declaration. So again, Baha'u'llah announced to several of his followers the glad tidings that he was the one whose coming had been foretold by the Bab, the chosen of God, the promised one of all the prophets. The garden where this memorable declaration took place has become known to Baha'is as the Garden of Rizwan, and the days Baha'u'llah spent there are commemorated in the Feast of Rizwan, which is held annually on the anniversary of those 12 days. And to any friends of the faith, if you get a chance to go to a local celebration of the Feast of Rizwan, again, you're invited. I'm giving a global invitation, and you're welcome to come. Thank you. I need to get a little drink of water, thanks. And it's just a wonderful celebration. Well, during those days, Baha'u'llah, remember, he was being exiled. But during those days, Baha'u'llah, instead of being sad or depressed, showed the greatest joy, dignity, and power. His followers became happy and enthusiastic, and great crowds came to pay their respects to him. All the notables of Baghdad, even the governor himself, came to honor the departing prisoner. So as again, he's leaving Baghdad. He's going to Constantinople and then to Adrianople. So now we're going to read about that, Constantinople and Adrianople. The journey to Constantinople lasted between 3 and 4 months. The party consisting of Baha'u'llah with members of his family, and 26 disciples. Arrived in Constantinople, they found themselves prisoners in a small house in which they were very much overcrowded. Later, they got somewhat better quarters, but after 4 months, they were again moved on, this time to Adrianople. The journey to Adrianople, although it lasted but a few days, was the most terrible they had yet undertaken. Snow fell heavily most of the time. And as they were destitute of proper clothing and food, their sufferings were extreme. For the first winter in Adrianople, Baha'u'llah and his family, numbering 12 persons, were accommodated in a small house of 3 rooms, comfortless and vermin-infested. In the spring, they were given a more comfortable abode. They remained in Adrianople for 4.5 years. Here, Baha'u'llah resumed his teaching and gathered about him a large following. He publicly announced his mission and was enthusiastically accepted by the majority of the Babis. Remember, the Babis were followers of the Bab. And he publicly announced his mission and was enthusiastically accepted by the majority of the Babis, who were known thereafter as Baha'is. A minority, however, became violently opposed to him and joined with their former enemies, the Shias, in plotting for their overthrow. I'm sorry, I skipped a line here. And it's an important line. A minority, however, under the leadership of Baha'u'llah's half-brother Mirza Yahya, became violently opposed to him and joined with their former enemies, the Shias, in plotting for his overthrow. Great troubles ensued, and at last, the Turkish government banished both Babis and Baha'is from Adrianople, exiling Baha'u'llah and his followers to Akka in Palestine, where they arrived on August 31st, 1868, while Mirza Yahya and his party were sent to Cyprus. So once again, Baha'u'llah being banished to another place. Now we're going to move on and read about letters that Baha'u'llah wrote to dignitaries around the world. And this part in the book is called Letters to Kings. About this time, remember this is 1868, about this time Baha'u'llah wrote his famous letter to the Sultan of Turkey, many of the crowned heads of Europe, the Pope, and the Shah of Persia. I'm going to name those again. About this time, Baha'u'llah wrote his famous letter to the Sultan of Turkey, many of the crowned heads of Europe, the Pope, and the Shah of Persia. Later, in his Kitab-i Aqdas, which we already mentioned, he addressed other sovereigns, the rulers and presidents of America, yes, even the president of America, the leaders of religion in general, and the generality of mankind. To all, he announced his mission. So this was this was kept no secret. To all, he announced his mission and called upon them to bend their energies to the establishment of true religion, just government, and international peace. True religion, just government, and international peace. In his letter to the Shah, he powerfully pleaded the cause of the oppressed Babis and asked to be brought face to face with those who had instigated their persecution. Needless to say, this request was not complied with. Badi, the young and devoted Baha'i who delivered the letter of Baha'u'llah, I'm going to start that sentence again because of the way it ends. Badi, the young and devoted Baha'i who delivered the letter of Baha'u'llah, was seized and martyred with fearful tortures, hot bricks being pressed on his flesh. In the same letter, Baha'u'llah gives a most moving account of his own sufferings and longings. He says, "O king, I have seen in the way of God what no eye hath seen and no ear hath heard. Friends have disclaimed me. Ways are straightened unto me. The pool of safety is dried up. The plain of ease is scorched yellow. How many calamities have descended, and how many will descend? I walk advancing toward the mighty, the bounteous, while behind me glides the serpent. My eyes rain down tears until my bed is drenched. But my sorrow is not for myself. By God, my head longeth for the spears, for the love of his Lord." By God, my head longeth for the spears, for the love of its Lord. And I never pass by a tree, but my heart addresseth it, saying, "Oh, would that thou wert cut down in my name, and my body were crucified upon thee in the name or in the way of my Lord. Yea, because I see mankind going astray in their intoxication, and they know it not. They have exalted their lusts and put aside their God, as though they took the command of God for a mockery, a sport, and a plaything. And they think that they do well, and that they are harbored in the citadel of security. The matter is not as they suppose. Tomorrow they shall see what they now deny." We are about to shift, continuing the letter, we are about to shift from this most remote place of banishment, which was Adrianople, unto the prison of Acre. And according to what they say, it is assuredly the most desolate of the cities of the world, the most unsightly of them in appearance, the most detestable in climate, and the foulest in weather. You have to understand that Acre was not just a building, it was a prison city. The most detestable in climate and the foulest in water. It is as though it were the metropolis of the owl. There is not heard from its regions aught save the sound of its hooting. And in it they intend to imprison the servant, and to shut in our faces the doors of leniency, and take away from us the good things of the life of the world during what remaineth of our days. By God, though weariness should weaken me, and hunger should destroy me, though my couch should be made of the hard rock, and my associates of the beast of the desert, I will not blench, but will be patient, as the resolute and determined are patient in the strength of God, the King of pre-existence, the Creator of the nations. And under all circumstances, I give thanks unto God. And we hope of his graciousness, exalted is he, that he will render all men's faces sincere toward him, the mighty, the bounteous. Verily, he answereth him who prayeth unto him, and is near unto him who calleth on him. And we ask him to make this dark calamity a buckler for the body of his saints, and to protect them thereby from sharp swords and piercing blades. Through affliction hath his light shone, and his praise been bright unceasingly. This has been his method through past ages and bygone times. See, it's 10:27. I think I'm going to read this next section. Right now, normally we'd be doing a song, but I think I'll read this and then we'll do the song. I say we, I'll do the song. Because the next section is about Baha'u'llah's imprisonment in the prison city of Akka. At the time, Akka, if you want to find anything regarding Akka in the Bible, it would be spelled capital A-C-R-E, but it's the same place. At that time, Akka was a prison city to which the worst criminals were sent from all parts of the Turkish Empire. On arriving there, after a miserable sea journey, Baha'u'llah and his followers, about 80 to 84 in number, including men, women, and children, were imprisoned in the army barracks. The place was dirty and cheerless in the extreme. There were no beds or comforts of any sort. The food supplied was wretched and inadequate, so much so that after a time the prisoners begged to be allowed to buy their food for themselves. During the first few days, the children were crying continually, and the sleep was almost impossible. Malaria, dysentery, and other diseases soon broke out, and everyone in the company fell sick with the exception of 2. 3 succumbed to their sicknesses, and the sufferings of the survivors was indescribable. This rigorous imprisonment lasted for over 2 years, during which time none of the Baha'is were allowed outside the prison door, except 4 men, carefully guarded, who went out daily to buy food. During the imprisonment in the barracks, visitors were rigidly excluded. Several of the Baha'is of Persia came all the way on foot for the purpose of seeing their beloved leader, but were refused admittance within the city walls. They used to go to a place on the plain outside the third moat, from which they could see the windows of Baha'u'llah's quarters. He would show himself to them at one of the windows, and after gazing on him from afar, they would weep and return to their homes, fired with new zeal for sacrifice and service. So just getting a glimpse of him from a distance inside the prison window was inspiring. There was a light shining in Akka. There was a light. It shone all around. A new revelation of God's loving guidance. One holy light lit up the night, the word streaming down. So many souls sharing a journey. So many souls seeking the light, hearing a voice whispering inside them, heeding the call, risking their all to do what was right. There was a light shining in Akka. There was a light. It shone all around. A new revelation of God's love and guidance. One holy light lit up the night. The word streaming down. One prison cell made oh so holy. God's revelation there in the dark. This Son of Truth, this blessed beauty, bringing God's love from up above into our hearts. There was a light shining in Akka. There was a light. It shone all around. A new revelation of God's loving guidance. One holy light lit up the night. One holy light lit up the night. One holy light lit up the night. The word streaming down. A light shining in Akka. Now you know what the light was. It was the light of Baha'u'llah. Given the time, well, no, I think we'll read just one. The next section is very short, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. There was a time where finally a lot of the restrictions on Baha'u'llah were finally relaxed, and yet he was still a prisoner. Make no mistake about that. At last, the imprisonment was mitigated. A mobilization of Turkish troops occurred, and the barracks were required for soldiers. Baha'u'llah and his family were transferred to a house by themselves, and the rest of the party were accommodated in a caravanserai in the town. Baha'u'llah was confined for 7 more years in this house, in a small room near that in which he was imprisoned. Hang on, just one moment. I have to do something here. I'll let someone in. There we go. Okay. Baha'u'llah was confined for 7 more years in this house. In a small room near that in which he was imprisoned, 13 of his household, including both sexes, had to accommodate themselves as best they could. In the earlier part of their stay in this house, they suffered greatly from insufficiency of accommodation, inadequate food supply, and a lack of the ordinary conveniences of life. And you know, when I'm reading this, I'm thinking, I mean, these were his followers. These were followers of Baha'u'llah who were willing to, undergo all of these difficulties because of their belief and their love of their Lord. But after a time, however, a few additional rooms were placed at their disposal, and they were able to live in comparative comfort. Comparative comfort. I think that word comparative is important. From the time Baha'u'llah and his companions left the barracks, visitors were allowed to see them. And gradually, the severe restrictions imposed by the imperial firmans were more and more left in abeyance, although now and then reimposed for a time. So, it's just, he never was completely free. Sometimes they would again reimpose those limitations on him. So when we start next week, when we come back next week, rather, we are going to read about the prison gates opening, the opening of the prison gates for Baha'u'llah. But we're going to go ahead and stop there right now. And as always, we like to have some time where anyone who would like to offer up a prayer or reading of their choosing, this is that time. And of course, as always, we like to start with our Andy Murphy moment. Andy, do you have something for us today?
Yes.
All righty. Well, please.
Is there any remover of difficulties save God? Say praise be God, He is God. All are His servants and all abide by His bidding. Is there any remover of difficulties save God? Say praise be God, He is God. All are His servants and all abide by His bidding.
I'll go ahead and say a healing prayer. Glory be to thee, O Lord my God. I implore thee by thy name, through which thou dost lift up the ensigns of thy guidance, and dost shed the radiance of thy loving kindness, and didst reveal the sovereignty of thy lordship, through which the lamp of thy names hath appeared within the niche of thine attributes, and he who is the tabernacle of thy unity, and the manifestation of detachment, hath shone forth, through which the ways of thy guidance were made known, and the paths of thy good pleasure were marked out, through which the foundations of error have been made to tremble, and the signs of wickedness have been abolished, through which the fountains of wisdom have burst forth, and the heavenly table have been sent down, to which thou didst preserve thy servants, and didst vouchsafe thy healing, to which thou didst show forth thy tender mercies unto thy servants, and revealest thy forgiveness amidst thy creatures. I implore thee to keep safe him who hath held fast and returned unto thee, and clung to the mercy and seized the hem of thy loving providence. Send down then upon him thy healing, and make him whole, and endue him with a constancy vouchsafed by thee, and a tranquility bestowed by thy highness. Thou art verily the healer, the preserver, the helper, the almighty, the powerful, the all-glorious, the all-knowing. Baha'u'llah.
Something is going wrong. I cannot hear you. You were muted, Tony.
I'll tell you what's going on. I muted myself. I don't know
Oh,
why. But yeah, I was just saying good morning to some of the people that were in our Facebook stream. But we always like to remind everyone that this is a joint effort from a variety of people and communities. We are able to come to you through the Zoom stream, because of the kindness of the Clearwater Baha'is, and you can find their website and other programming aside from this. You can find their website on clearwaterbaha'is.org, clearwaterbaha'is.org. And you can also find other websites where you'll be able to access the content of a lot of the books that we read, that we've been reading over the years. So we've been doing this, and those are some definitive, some reliable websites with again, reliable and valid information from Baha'i writings and about the Baha'i faith. Other things that you can find other than just the content of the books that we're reading is contents of many, many, many other books that we haven't read, and I don't know that we'll ever get to on our program. But you can have access to an awful lot of information, as well as news about what's going on in the Baha'i world and so forth. And some of the websites that you can go to are right here. Usually Daryl would be saying this, so I need to look. But yeah, www.baha'i.org, www.baha'i.us. We already mentioned clearwaterbaha'is.org, but also www.baha'i.teachings.org, baha'i.teachings.org. Okay, all righty. And so, well, a couple of things. Let me put this aside just for a moment. We hope that Daryl will be feeling better soon, and I'm noticing the sun is actually coming out there. So maybe today, as today progresses, maybe it'll be just a little more, a little more pleasant. I don't know. And I'm getting a signal from Nina. Oh, say that again. I'm not. Okay. Well, I do want to remind you all to pray for Camby's, and I was reminded that Andy shared with us earlier that today is the anniversary of the passing of his wife 4 years ago. So he's going through a difficult time, and yet he's still willing to come and share with us today. So we really appreciate your presence, and we ask that everyone pray for Andy. When these anniversaries of past loved ones are always difficult. So again, we ask that you pray for them. Is there anything else I need to point out?
Yes. Next weekend, next Sunday is Christmas Eve. Will there be a devotional then?
I'm glad you brought that up, and the short answer is I plan on it. If things change, I'll send out some kind of a message. But yeah, I plan to, because it's Christmas Eve, but it's not. Well, the answer is most likely. I'll put it that way. Yes, most likely. It's early in the morning. Yeah, whatever's going on in the day will probably go on later on in the day. So yes, I think it would be a good thing to do. Does that sound like a commitment? I think it is. I think it's a commitment. I think it's a commitment. Okay. We still have a little bit of time here, but I'm not going to belabor things. I will tell you.
Tony.
Yes.
Can Amira say a prayer?
I would love that. Yes, please.
All right, here we are. Amira.
I beg thee to forgive me, O my Lord, for every mention but the mention of thee, and for every praise but the praise of thee, and for every delight but delight in thy nearness, and for every pleasure but the pleasure of communion with thee, and for every joy but the joy of thy love, and of thy good pleasure, and for all things pertaining unto me, which bear no relationship unto thee, O thou who art the Lord of lords, he who provideth the means and unlookest the doors, the Bob.
Thank you so much, Samara. I just want to say that's a beautiful family photo you all have there. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes. And, usually, as you know, we end our program with the song, Let Your Vision Be World Embracing. I'm not going to do that today. I always like what Daryl does. But I do want to say that, we have a local choir here, called Voices of Unity, A Joyful Noise, primarily Baha'is, but it's open to anyone who would choose to join. And they've started doing this song that is very, very well known in Baha'i circles. It's called Strive. I didn't write it or anything, but and it's actually, generally when it's done, it kind of sounds like a children's song. But either way, it's a nice song. And so why am I choosing to do this song today? Well, it's because Daryl always says, if you join us frequently enough, you know, he always tells us all to share the love, share the love, share the love. And I concur with that wholeheartedly. But in this song, this is actually a quote from Abdu'l-Baha. And I just think it's a list of ways, that we can do exactly what Daryl says. It's a list of ways that we can share the love. And so I think I'm gonna do this song to the best of my ability. This isn't, I mean, the general song, it's the same, melody is the same, but the arrangement is much more lush. I encourage anyone to go on YouTube and hear this song, because it's a great song, but it's strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. Enrich the poor, raise the fallen, comfort the sorrowful, bring healing to the sick, reassure the fearful, rescue the oppressed, bring hope to the hopeless, shelter the destitute, strive. Only they do it a little more upbeat, so. Strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. Enrich the poor, raise the fallen, comfort the sorrowful, bring healing to the sick, reassure the fearful, rescue the oppressed, bring hope to the hopeless, shelter the destitute. Strive, 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 strive. So if you ask, how can I show love to others? You got a list there. You got a whole list of things that you can do. And that's coming straight from Abdu'l-Baha. So folks, have yourself a good week out there, and hopefully we'll see you here next week. Yes, it'll be Christmas Eve, but it'll be early in the day as usual, so we plan on being here. Take care. Allah Akbar.
Oh well.